Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my insane homeowner association bullied an entire neighborhood into serving them and playing their stupid little game. The HOA ends up putting crazy fines on me and is trying to steal my house. We ended up in court. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. So just to get this out of the way first, I admit that the beginning of this story could be seen as my fault a little bit. I lived in my neighborhood before an HOA came in to help the place. I did not know that since I was there before, it meant I was excluded from the HOA and assumed since I was getting bills from them that I just had to pay it. I don't really like HOAs as a concept, but I was not gonna do anything drastic like move because of one. It was not until about a year after they showed up that I realized that I actually was not part of this HOA. I was being billed and they were taking my money, but I was not part of this HOA or even recognized by them. I was not gonna keep being dumb and giving them money for no reason, and I sure as hell was not gonna fill out paperwork to officially join them. So then I just stopped paying and even let them know that they made an error, but since I also made a mistake, I was not gonna seek out my money back. I was just gonna let them keep the money I gave them and move on from there. I got a call regarding my letter a few days later that changed my mind about being such a nice and accommodating guy. And by the way guys, I'm not sure if I would call that nice and accommodating, more like being a doormat if you ask me. You should not let the HOA do that to you. But anyway, let's see how it continues. HOA says, "Is this OP?" "Yep, OP speaking. We got your letter that you're refusing all future HOA payments. Please be advised that failure to pay can result in lawsuits and even foreclosure of your property." Me, I think you're confused. You can even try looking me up in your system and see that I'm not part of the HOA. You were simply billing me by mistake and I paid by mistake. I just want to drop the whole thing, honestly. HOA, sir, once again, this is your final warning of what will come from a lack of payment. They then hung up and I got a bad taste in my mouth from the whole thing. I kept getting bills that I kept not paying and writing a letter each time from them telling them to stop billing me because I don't belong to this HOA. It turns out that their threats were not as empty as I hoped they would be, and the next thing I received in the mail was not as nice as bills from them. If something is worse than bills, you already know that it is something big. I was given official notice from the HOA attorney that I was being sued for missed payments and they were officially foreclosing on my home. They had set up an auction date and everything to try and sell my house and get the money from me that way. I swear I stopped breathing for a minute before calling around to see if anybody knew what I should do. It was actually through here that I found other people having horrible HOA issues and what they did about it. That's one reason I'm sharing my story in case somebody else's problem is similar to mine. Anyway, it seemed like most of those people got a lawyer, so I went out and found the best one I could afford. I really did not want to lose my property and I was willing to spend the money for a lawyer if it meant I got to keep it. It turns out writing them those letters every month was a great thing on my part because I had some kind of proof that I was aware I didn't need to pay and was telling them over and over about their mistake. It was unclear if they were just ignoring me on purpose to try and get money from me or just being dumb and really thinking I was part of the HOA despite not being in their system. When we get to court, I am nervous and sweating bullets because I know that despite everything, they had a chance of getting away with it after all. Maybe I watched too many law shows on TV though, since my lawyer said that it was a pretty cut and dry case. My fear was it would become a he said she said situation and the judge might side with them and take my house away. Once things started though, I started to calm down significantly and let my lawyer handle things while I sat there for the most part. Lawyer, when the HOA was established, there was a clause stating that existing homeowners were excluded from the HOA unless they chose to opt into it. HOA, that's correct. Lawyer, did my client sign those papers and opt into this HOA? HOA, no. His payments over the course of a year though were taken as a sign of him opting in. Lawyer, so you're claiming that by him paying he was opting in and therefore is part of the HOA. How do you keep track of what houses are in the HOA and which are excluded? HOA, we have an electronic system that keeps track of all of this. Lawyer, is my client in the system? HOA, well no, because he never filled in a form. I was trying hard not to laugh as this guy talked himself in circles while digging himself in deeper and deeper. Just saying that even if they added me in the system and took my payments as me opting in, it still would not have been legally binding without the paperwork and my signature. It was clear that I was not part of the HOA at all, so they had no right to ask me for money or foreclose on my house and tried to put it up for auction. I still was not done with them yet though, because I was angry and wanted to fight back and hit them where it hurt the most, which is in their wallets. I was suing them back for harassment, pain and suffering, my year of money and legal fees. And by the way guys, I would love to clap now because I thought in the beginning OP is a doormat, but it seems like he is not. So anyway, the judge threw out the first two due to lack of evidence, which honestly I saw coming, but it was worth a try. They did say the HOA had to give me the money I paid them back because it was collecting from me without providing me with the goods and services, whatever the HOA claims to provide for members. Also, they had to pay for my lawyer, and if you recall, I said that I wanted to make sure that I got a good one no matter the cost. So I got $2,200 for the money I gave them over that last year. As for my lawyer fees, they had to pay an additional $180,000. I know that sounds high, but keep in mind the legal system is very slow, so it was a long period of time I spent all that money on him, as well as additional legal assistance. The court date kept getting pushed, and that meant so did the auction on the house, and the whole thing was a disaster that kept resulting in needing to pay more for the lawyer. He was really great by the way and kept me calm through the entire ordeal. I hope they learned that messing with people who don't even belong to their pointless little group is a very bad idea indeed. I know that from now on I will also make sure I read things before blindly paying for them. And the next one is a true HOA Mafia story. Miami-Dade County prosecutors arrested several members and vendors of the Hammocks Community Association, accusing them of engaging in a complicated $2 million fraud. Current and former board members of the largest homeowner association in Florida were charged on Tuesday with plundering millions of dollars from the organization's finances. Investigators arrested 5 members and vendors of the Hammocks Community Association, which oversees 40 communities and over 6,500 units in West Kendall. They are being accused of engaging in a complicated fraud, racketeering, and money laundering scheme that netted over $2 million in stolen funds. The Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office said on Tuesday it will detail the charges at an afternoon press conference. The arrested members and vendors were also expected to appear in Miami-Dade Bond Court. Some of the felony charges stem from a long-running probe that last year resulted in the arrest of the Hammocks Owners Association president Mark Lee Gallego, 41 years old. Since her arrest, the sprawling planned community of over 25,000 people has been in turmoil, its coffers depleted, homeowners hit with 300 to 400% hikes in maintenance fees, and the launching of a contentious recall effort against the board. Homeowners felt vindicated on Tuesday after fighting what they call the Gallego Mafia for years. They tried to oust the board at a chaotic January 3rd election when hundreds of voters standing in line were not allowed to vote because of a fake phoned-in bomb threat, and again during a July recall election when the board threw out 2/3 of the ballots cast. Justice can be slow to prevail, but we are ready to declare a holiday for the Hammocks today, said Don Kearns, a 28-year-old resident, former board president, and a leader of the Justice for the Hammocks Coalition. I encourage the state attorney's office and police to continue to go down the rabbit hole because we believe it will lead to more arrests and the discovery of more stolen money. While the arrested board members must resign, 3 of Gallego's allies will remain in power, Kearns said. The fear is they will raise fees again so they can bail out their arrested fellow board members and keep using our money for their legal defense, he said. We are talking about $1.1 million a month being paid to an HOA that refuses to open its books or hold budget meetings, that terrorizes a working class community with nasty letters about liens and code violations, that leaves our trees, walkways and lakes as unkempt as ever. For years, we have tried to figure out where the money is going. Gallego faces additional charges, and prosecutors charged her husband, Jose Antonio Gonzalez, 45. He's accused of running 2 companies that reaped at least $1.26 million in HOA funds. Also charged the current president Monica Isabel Gallardi, 52, board member Miriam Arango Rogers, 76, and Yolides Lopez Garcia, 47, who served on the board between 2016 and 2022. It was in April 21 that prosecutors first charged Gallego on accusations that she stole nearly $60,000 from the association. including more money spent on a private investigator to spy on her perceived enemies in the neighborhood. Prosecutors said that between November 16 and March 18, Gallego improperly used a HOA credit card for a wide array of personal purchases, including at supermarkets, bakeries, and fast food restaurants such as Polo Tropical, Panera Bread, and Little Caesars. Her trial is pending. An arrest warrant depicted her as using HOA resources to go after enemies, ordering the community security to harass rival association members, and of course filing lawsuits against people she felt were targeting her unjustly. Investigators say she and the board repeatedly ignored subpoenas, failing to turn over thousands of financial records while fighting with prosecutors over tens of thousands of dollars in reimbursement for the time and expense of gathering the records. At one point, she even filed lawsuits against a Miami-Dade economic crimes investigator who was leading the criminal probe that led to her arrest. But as her criminal case wound through the legal system, the state attorney's office embarked on a wider fraud probe into the HOA and again found itself stymied by the board while trying to subpoena financial documents. Despite judges ordering the HOA to produce financial documents, the association refused to comply, even appealing one judge's ruling. An appeals court threw out the appeal. At one point earlier this year, an attorney for the board told a Miami-Dade judge the board voted to ignore the judge's order because the board does not trust the state. The board last held a public meeting 4.5 years ago and has worked in secret since, Kern said. The board admitted at a recent hearing it does not have audited financial statements for 6 of the past 7 years. Homeowners are asking a judge to appoint a receiver to take over the board, examine the financial damage, and supervise a new election. Justice for the Hammocks also wants the state legislature to rewrite Statute 720, which regulates HOAs, meaning all victims of rogue HOAs need to pressure the state to put teeth into 720 and give the Department of Business and Professional Regulation real enforcement authority. Otherwise, it is a Wild West free for all. When you've got unscrupulous characters running your community, 720 is a thief. Circuit Judge Deanne Viscano, who then was presiding over the legal fights, even ordered the board's custodian of records, an association employee, to come to court to explain himself. The employee, Kevin Alzate, a cousin of Gallego's, insisted he had never been the records keeper. When shown an affidavit he signed saying he was, Alzate claimed he signed the document without reading it closely. The HOA's efforts to stonewall the investigation are still continuing. Recently, the board filed a federal lawsuit against the state attorney's office to block enforcement of subpoenas. That case is still pending. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you have ever needed more proof or more reason to not be in an HOA community, I think this story does the job very well. And also, filing a lawsuit against the law enforcement officials investigating you sounds like an amazing way to get more attention, or rather unwanted attention, from law enforcement. So yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, HOAs, especially in Florida, are definitely scary. You definitely could not pay me enough to live in an HOA like this. And the next one is titled, Getting Comeuppance on the Most Stupid Person Ever. So several years ago, I used to work at an agency that hired us out as short-term temporary workers and contractors. These jobs pretty much consisted of stuff that company employees could not be bothered to do, and so got someone in to sort out. It was not great, but I had to make ends meet. Anyway, one of these jobs was for 150 hours at 5 weeks of office administration. There was not much more information to go on, but a job's a job. The office turned out to be a quite small, stuffy little building at the back of an industrial estate. I was told to report to Beryl, and when I turned up, I was met by a rather grumpy-looking old lady having a cigarette by the front door. This was Beryl. Beryl did not even say hello or ask me my name, but showed me in, pointed at an enormous pile of boxes full of paperwork, saying, "This all needs to be scanned in. There are 2 scanners connected to a computer there. Off you go. Let someone know if you need help." So off I went. That pile of boxes was to be my job for the next month and a bit. Joy. The office was predominantly young men, with Beryl being the only other woman. She was in her 50s and spent more time smoking than working, and without being rude, clearly did not look after herself. It was quite flattering to have a bunch of these guys pop by my workstation for a chat occasionally. After a few days of scanning, Beryl visited my cubicle. She wasn't happy that I spent too much time talking and not enough time working. I was confused. While I didn't have metrics or targets, I was pretty consistently working through this mountain of paperwork. I got the impression that Beryl did not like the attention I was getting. I pointed out to her that I have not left my desk apart from going to the toilet, and if someone's over here trying to talk to me, then that's fine, as I can talk and scan at the same time, like I'm doing right now. She was not happy and turned away, calling out, "Just do your job," as she left. Some of the other guys had heard this and they popped by my desk later and said not to worry. They'd had agency staff before, and Beryl always hated it if a young woman arrived because she was grumpy and jealous, not my words. In fact, a few years ago, one young woman had left the office in tears because Beryl had torn her a new one for going for lunch with some of the other guys. Naturally, this annoyed me, particularly because Beryl thought she could bully and disrespect agency staff, and I certainly was not gonna leave the job because of an angry witch. Malicious compliance 1. For the rest of my time there, I made sure to get dressed up. Makeup, curls, a meaty office dress, stiletto heels. When Beryl saw me clicking my way down the office the next day, fully dressed up just to scan some paperwork, she scowled at me but didn't say anything. The next week though, Beryl took some time out of her busy smoking schedule to visit me in my cubicle, the second time she had done so since I'd started. Some of the paperwork I was scanning in had been stapled together, so I had asked someone in the office for a staple remover and a stapler. I used to pull out the staple, scan the document, rename it on the computer, and then restaple it and put it back in the box. I was just pulling a staple out when Beryl walked by. Beryl's first words to me were, "What are you doing?" I replied that this document was stapled and if I put it in the machine, it would jam. She raised her voice slightly and said, "Nobody told you to do that, just scan each page in separately. Leave the papers alone." I could almost hear her eyes roll as she walked away. Malicious compliance number 2, so I did exactly that. I scanned everything with staples just folded over and then created folders called document 123, and each scan went in as 123 page1.pdf, 123 page2.pdf. You get the idea. This slowed me down a lot, but hey, it's what I was asked to do. At some point Beryl walked by and saw me flipping pages like that. I'd put my hair in a bun and taken my heels off and she smirked. She thought she had flustered me and that I didn't see her reaction. Don't worry Beryl, you didn't, and I did. The paperwork I was scanning in was boxed up as newest first, so I got to some of the older papers. These had been moved around a couple of times and were slightly crunched up or folded or something similar. A jammed scanner was not an issue, it had happened a handful of times before, but as I got to the older papers, the jams became more frequent. It was easy to sort though, so just open the back door of the scanner, roll the paper out, cancel the job and redo it. At this point, I'd gone back to unstapling and restapling because Beryl had given me some space thinking she had broken me, and I just wanted to get the job done so I could leave. Beryl walked in one day. This would have been my 4th week there. She saw me unjamming the scanner and flipped her top. She yelled, "SML, what are you doing?" At this point, all heads in the office turned to where we were. I calmly told her, "The scanner is jammed, I'm just pulling the paper out so I can rescan it." "Shouldn't take more than a few minutes." She continued yelling, "At no point were you instructed to perform it repairs. We have someone for that. Stop what you are doing and get someone to help you. I asked you when you started, why can't you follow simple instructions?" It took a lot of patience not to argue back with her, which I thought was what she wanted, but I said, "Okay, fine, can I speak to the IT guy to sort this out?" I could not have choreographed her response better. I then knew that she did want me to argue, so she could kick me out because she hesitated and said, well, the IT guy is off for the rest of the week. This was a Thursday. Use the other scanner. If you jam it, let me know," and stormed off. Malicious compliance number 3, I knew her diary and knew she was off the next day on a Friday. I carried on with the one scanner, making sure it did not jam that day, and waited until the next morning. Coincidentally, the scanner jammed on the first piece of paper I fed into it. Who would have thought? Obviously, I rang Beryl. She did not answer her phone, and as she wasn't in the office, I spent the day sailing around without much to do. Whilst talking to the guys in the office, I learned that the company had been bought by a much larger IT firm and they just wanted the rights to the proprietary software that they had developed. It also turned out that the CEO of the small company basically paid himself into retirement and appointed Beryl as the director. Beryl knew that her days were numbered, so she was even more bitter to the staff. The guys working there had been committed various levels of careers within the new IT firm, which they were happy with. As I was told, 120,000 employees, 30 dev roles are easy to find. One director role is not. Anyway, when we returned on Monday, you could see almost the vein in her neck throbbing. She had wasted an entire day of whatever her company paid my agency because little old me was not trusted to fix a paper jam. I used to get in a little later than the rest of the staff, agency perks, but when I got in, she had had the IT champion perform the skilled job of opening a scanner and pulling a piece of paper out. She did not even look at me when she said, "Scanners are fixed, get on with your job and don't mess around." At this point you may be thinking, SML, this is a lot of text for some pretty trivial MC. Well, you will like the final part. My last week there coincided with a new contract that the company had given by their new owners. I assume it was some sort of litmus test. While I don't pretend to understand what it was, the job involved a lot of scanning documents that had been handwritten. Hooray, more boxes. At the same time, a few of the guys who worked there were going on a visit to the new parent company, which was based in the US, and I live in the UK. The so-called IT champion was one of these guys who went. When the boxes were delivered to my cubicle, Beryl popped by and said, "These take priority. All of what I said to you is more important than ever. Don't mess around, otherwise you're out of the door." Am I clear? Yes, ma'am. The paperwork delivered was from the USA. Our paper sizes are different. The first piece of paper I fed into the scanner jammed it, a safety lock, because it expected A4 and got US letters instead. I jammed both scanners. Beryl, not being one to turn down a free trip to America, had gone with them. I rang her at 11 AM UK time, which was 5 AM their time. She picked up and was not impressed. I felt sorry for the folks adjacent to her hotel room when she screamed down the phone, "You have done what? How? Why?" I tell her about the USA paperwork. "No, can you not fix that?" Final malicious compliance. "No, you have told me many times that I cannot fix these machines. What is the business continuity plan?" Side note, my brother told me that phrase and he still doesn't quite understand why I turned up to his house a bit later with a few pizzas and a box of beer. Beryl had no idea what to do. She was clearly flustered. "Can you just do what you can? We need this done." "What would you want me to do? Can you fix the scanners, because this is really important?" "I'm sorry, you told me I cannot do that. I need simple instructions to work with." "Just fix it." "I would be happy to show an IT specialist where the scanners are if you can get them here to..." Hang up tone. Well, that's that then. I spent the rest of the week chatting to my colleagues, updating my CV and applying for jobs. Nobody turned up to fix the scanners. When my final week finished, I said bye to the guys I had worked with, wished them luck and left with none of the critical paperwork scanned in. When Beryl got back from her business trip, I learned that she had spent one day at the parent company and left it to the other guys. When the crap hit the fan because nothing was being delivered, they wondered where she was. This was 2 days into the 5-day business trip. She was at a spa, phone switched off. She flew out early on day 5 without seeing any of her colleagues or the parent company. I kept in touch with a few of the guys afterwards. After this, the dev guys were transferred contracts to the larger IT firm. They all got a very small salary increase, but were also able to work from home. This was pre-COVID, so it was a bit of a rarity back then. Beryl, meanwhile, did not fare so well. She was initially offered redundancy, paid including pension deals, but when someone complained that she had not been present for the meetings, which I think was their IT champion, they found out she had been sightseeing, shopping, tanning, and getting her hair done on company time. She ended up being fired, no bonus, no pension, no nothing. I then quit the agency not long afterwards, and after 1 or 2 moves ended up in a job I'm very happy with. The agency were none the wiser about any of this. They just wanted their money, and aside from one initial checkup call, left me to it. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, that was a fantastic malicious compliance saga. Seriously, OP could not have quit that awful job any better. If you would have done anything different, let us know in the comments, but I think this is pretty much picture perfect malicious compliance. Or rather, I guess, textbook malicious compliance. And the next one is titled, "Help, was I in the wrong? I kicked out a friend and her boyfriend in the middle of the night for hitting my dog." My friend had been staying with me for the week. She was planning on going back home today with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend came up yesterday to hang out with us for the day. I don't like him, but I figured it was just one day and I would be nice until he left, which would hopefully be very soon. She brought her dog with her, a border collie. My apartment has one room, so we set up an inflatable bed for her downstairs. My dog has been sleeping with her on the bed with her border collie. I own a Shih Tzu mix. She is my childhood dog and she is around 10 years old right now. When her boyfriend came, he said no dogs on the inflatable bed. I said that was going to be difficult because they were used to sleeping there. We were talking in the living room, but I said when I go to sleep, which will be very soon, I will take her with me and close the door so she won't bother you guys. And by the way guys, little trigger warning because this guy will now hit the dog. Anyway, while I was saying this, my dog jumped on the bed again. I got up to get her off, but he said I've got this. He grabbed his shoe and just smacked her with it. She let out a whine/bark, which I wasn't expecting, and she jumped up straight into my arms. I didn't even know she had the ability to do that anymore. I was so mad. I was so pissed. What the actual F? Does he seriously think he can come into my place and just start smacking around and punishing my dog? Who does that? I told him to get out or I will call the police. He was like, "Where am I gonna go? We're a 2-hour drive from home." I told him he should have thought about that before he smacked my dog. My friend was trying to get me to settle down. She told me to drop it and it wasn't a big deal, and I told her that if she sides with this a-hole, she can leave too. So I made him leave, and since she wasn't going to leave her boyfriend to go alone, she left too. They probably got a hotel room for the night, I don't know. Did I make the right decision in making him leave right there and then? Or should I have let them stay the night and leave in the morning like they were planning to do? And guys, in my opinion, OP definitely did the right thing, because obviously a dog is a family member, and if someone would just slap your family member, obviously you wouldn't be nice enough to let them stay the night, right? Please let me know in the comments what you would have done and what you think about this story. And a user in the comments said, "Absolutely, you made the right decision. Screw this dude and everyone like him. Some people have this need to be in control and be obeyed. He came into your house, demanded after his girlfriend had been there a week to change the bed setup, and then hit your dog after you showed you would move her, getting up." These are some major red flags indicating he's got control issues, and I would be worried about your friend. Not tolerating his behavior shows your friend that there's something significantly wrong with it. And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, then please feel free to check out my Patreon over at patreon.com/ripeyoutube, or join my YouTube membership program by clicking the join button to get access to even more exclusive videos. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you again tomorrow.